Just like a heart in trauma, sometimes our self-care needs a jumpstart to learn how to tick again. Hi, this is Monica Packer, and you're listening to About Progress, where we are about progress made practical. I have long taught about the deep and practical importance of leaning into the process when it comes to all things growth. The process is small wins build over time. A lot of you came to my work on this podcast and have stuck around with it for years because of the gentle approach I take to what I teach about personal development, and more specifically, the great importance of small steps and how taking small steps makes your progress both more doable and more sustainable over time. My little saying that I do as a send-off at the end of each episode came from listeners who told me that listening into the podcast felt like a hug. But if you have listened to even a few episodes, then you know that that send-off says, I hope this episode gave you the hug and kick in the pants you need to grow. And if you hear that, then you may also know that I try to aim for things to be both gentle and firm. And while I always want you to feel better than when you came to this podcast, some episodes are more about a kick in the pants. And today will be that kind of episode. In it, I am going to make a case for the occasional necessity and importance of big steps, especially when it comes to self-care. Self-care that requires time for what we need, and for what we want. This push came for me thanks to my own big step of taking a solo trip, a trip that forced me into the position of becoming an accidental case study for this idea that I want to talk about, that we as women occasionally need to go big when it comes to taking care of ourselves, and how doing so acts as a form of radical reconnection and self-reclamation. I am already fired up, and I'm going to make the case and share about the case study as well after a quick break for our sponsors. I have really exciting news on the book front. A quick catch up if you haven't heard, I have been writing a book on gentle, flexible habit formation for women this year, and I am so lucky to have gotten a literary agent and now a book deal, which means I can officially tell you the book is called Happy Habits, and it will be released hopefully in the fall of 2026. And this is where I need you. Leading up to the launch of this book, I need a committee of gal pals just like you to be my early test readers, to pre-order the book, and to act as grassroots publicists the moment each of these steps are made ready, and to potentially act as an advanced reader. Would you like to be on that book launch committee and get the latest updates, behind the scenes, and first dibs on all book news while you're at it? Go to aboutprogress.com/book committee. And when you sign up, you'll get a newsletter automatically with all the past updates I've given, including behind the scenes and sneak peeks. The link is in the show notes for you. Again, it's aboutprogress.com/book committee. I can't wait to share as much as I can with you along the way, and I am so eager for you to get your hands on this book. First, a foundation for the case I'm about to make. What I'm going to teach here may feel a tad oppositional to a lot of what you hear me teach most often. And for me, that's not because these ideas are conflicting. I find them to be complementary. The personal development field loves to preach certainty. It's a big pet peeve of mine. They preach certainty mostly because it's attractive and it sells, but also because it's easier to teach in the black and white. We as humans love black and white. We love certainty. A lot of what I do online combats the prescription-bound certainties that are taught and again sold in the personal development space, especially when those prescriptions are so very unrealistic to women leading real lives. I want women to know that dramatic change starts small and builds slowly and messily so. I want them to know that flexibility is the very path to consistency, and that they themselves are the expert that they have been looking for. They can make their own prescriptions. With that all being said, I also want women to know there's an and there, that the pursuit of progress will look like seasons of gentleness and seasons of persistence, that there will be a variety. While most of what we do will be small, there's also a great need for occasional bursts of big, maybe even hard, stretching work. This is true for all of the ways we want to grow. If you go back to school, it's time for some big steps. If you have a child in crisis, then that's the time to step up to the plate and swing, swing, swing. If you have pressing needs from relationships to careers, then of course, there are times where you've got to go big. While all of that should still be buoyed up by this belief in and practice of the process of still seeking for sustainable, small, messy ways to support yourself and to change for the long game, we can't negate the big that is needed as well. So, with all of that, as well as the hope that you are with me, I want to make a case for going big on one important category: self-care. Self-care isn't just pampering, like girls' nights out and bubble baths and pedicures, although it can be those things. True self-care is bigger and deeper. It's more about being in tune with yourself. It's about both noticing and validating your wants and needs, and then following through with meeting them as best you can. Self-care can look like going to therapy. It can look like picking up a new hobby. It can look like taking a nap, and it can look like taking a bubble bath. Regardless of what you do, self-care is about caring for yourself. And do you know what is the biggest make it or break it when it comes to self-care that I have found to be true? It's time. From small steps to big, none of those things are possible if we don't prioritize, plan, and even press for that time. If you're in a season where listening to and caring for yourself has fallen to the wayside, where taking time to care for yourself only comes if you put in way more work to make that happen, then the simple advice of take care of yourself is going to fall flat. You may be out of practice. Your family may be out of practice too. You may be burnt out, exhausted, or still running on fumes with urgent cares all around you. And even with all of that, I want to make the case that this is the very time where you need to take care of yourself, and sometimes in a big way, because this is the very time it's most needed, and because there will never be a good time. To illustrate that, I want to tell you that I have coached women in their 60s and 70s, women who are raising their hands to work on reacquainting themselves with who they are. Women who need help in reprioritizing themselves from habits to hobbies. Women whose lives have not actually slowed down all that much because there are still urgent needs wherever they look. I have to tell you, I'm always so proud of these women. I'm proud of them because they know it is never too late, and they are ready and willing to put in the work, and they do so. And the great thing is we always get them to a far better place than when they started. But each time I work with a woman in her later years, I feel a tug of sadness. I feel sad for the years lost where she could have felt better, been more herself, and lived a real, wild, messy, beautiful life where she was prioritized, where she was on her own list. So with these women in mind, I want to say something pretty bold to you. It is never too late. But do not wait. Just like a heart in trauma, sometimes our self-care needs a jumpstart to learn how to tick again. I want to tell you some good news about what is even big, because it's subjective. You get to decide what is big for you. My first big act of self-care after years of being off my list altogether was my do something list. You should be well familiar with this list. At the time, it was a list of 30 things I wanted to try before I turned 30. And doing those small things, messily and with great mediocrity, that felt huge to me. From reading books again, to trying new recipes, to writing publicly on a little blog that nobody read. My small acts for my do something list felt big and radical to me. Another form of big self-care when I was at my most lost and burnt out looked like saying goodbye to one therapist that wasn't quite the right fit, and hello to a new one that wasn't covered by my insurance either. At the time, that felt very risky, especially because I felt pretty defeated by things not working with the last therapist. And I thought maybe it was me and that I was to blame. But saying I was worth trying again on and trying someone new and something new was a big thing for me. Another big thing I did early on in this period was my first me day. I've done an episode on this and I'll link to it. This is where I just take a day to myself. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's a full day. The first one we did was a full day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We were just under 10 years married at the time. We had 3 kids who were then 7 years old and under. My oldest was about to turn 8. And I had never once in all my years of motherhood taken even an afternoon for myself, nonetheless a whole day. It was a huge thing for me to ask Brad to watch the kids for a full Saturday so I could gallivant around San Francisco, where I visited my first museum in 8 years and I window shopped before reading on my public transit home. I have a picture from that museum trip of me awkwardly standing in front of a piece of bright, modern art, something that was out of the norm for me to do because I do not enjoy being in front of the camera, and I also had to ask a stranger to take the picture for me. But this is a picture that I can bring to mind in an instant, not because I looked cute, because I didn't. I had a pretty prominent zit on my face. That's all I can see when I see the actual picture. But I can bring up this picture in my mind because of what that moment meant to me, to my very soul. It wasn't about the art. It was about reconnecting with the long-lost part of me that loved art and loved museums. So much so that I interned at the Smithsonian before getting married and seriously considered going into museum studies before I instead became a teacher. It also wasn't about the time away from the kids, although it was that. It was about the time I then had to think, to breathe, to be myself. That day barely involved any money, just the train ride to and from the city. But it was a huge investment in myself, especially because it came at the cost of requesting that someone else, my husband Brad, step up and make it possible for me to do so. Those big acts of self-care are ones I feel incredibly grateful now to past Monica. While there wasn't a single one of them that dramatically changed my life in an instant, they each reminded me not just how to take the time, but of the necessity of doing so. That gratitude for past Monica really came to a head for me quite recently while I was on my trip abroad to London, one that I'll tell you more about in a bit. While I was on the trip, I recorded a travelogue of what I was experiencing for a special episode that I released on More Personal. And I was as shocked as anyone else when on my final day there, I was extremely emotional. As you may know, I am not much of a crier. I don't feel things very deeply. I'm more of a doer. But that whole day, which I spent walking 12 miles all over London, also looked like me weeping behind my sunglasses. One of those first moments came after I ate chocolate-covered strawberries at the Borough Market, which is a popular food market near the Globe. And it was at the Globe where I was walking, and I recorded this little segment I want to share with you. I just had a moment, a life one. And like over a large cup of chocolate-covered strawberries. I just left the Borough Market, and I'm walking towards the Globe. So cool. But a little backstory. I think I've mentioned it maybe 100 times, but I went on my study abroad here 20 years ago, almost 19 years ago, a little over. And it was inarguably the most life-altering experience of my life up to that point, and still is one of them, which is why I probably talk about it all the time. And that's because I got exposed to so much. I got to see so much. I was the first one in my family to leave outside of the States, aside from, serving a mission, to just be able to see things and do things. So to do that was one, and also to see them was another, and to experience them was another. So yeah, every part of that was so incredibly life-changing. But the other part of that trip was that I realized I had a major problem. It was on that trip that, years and years of disordered eating fully turned into a full-blown eating disorder. And, probably, I would say the majority of my trip was consumed by that. So when I went to Borough Market, I think I went twice while I was there, I have so many pictures of every stall and so many pictures of food, and I didn't let myself eat any of it. I just saw and I wanted it, but I, was being good and going to be careful. And I remember buying a small bag of chocolate covered nuts and apricots, dried apricots. So I guess I did eat those things, but I bought them and I didn't eat them there, and I saved them, and I was allowed to eat one apricot and one nut a day. I'm not even exaggerating. And in many ways, while that experience was so life-altering, it could have been so much more. But my eating disorder really, and it definitely was, robbed me of my presence. And it robbed me of moments and thrills and joys and I would say even pleasures, it robbed me. So now going back, I realized this the other day. I was on my walk there, oh my goodness, I am fully present to each part of this experience. I am fully here. I'm not thinking about my body. I'm not obsessing over what my lunch is going to be today and how I can eat just part of it. I'm not worried over what they're going to feed us next. I'm not thinking about the calories. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm here. I'm taking in every sensory experience. I am truly making memories. I am with people as I talk to them, not just pretending. And that came to a head the other day because of all the nature walks, and being on top of a giant hill where Keira Knightley had her moment, on that kind of rock face. The few moments of mental respite, from the turmoil of my eating disorder on the trip, were those kind of moments when I was on the top of a big hill. And I can't remember what they are now. One was in Edinburgh. I think it's Adam's Handle or something like that. Or another one was on top of another English countryside I don't remember. The Lake District was so healing. But to just know, I didn't, those moments were that powerful for me here. But they weren't my only respite. So now it brings us to Borough Market. And I'm sorry, this is a long way of telling you about this. But the Borough Market, one of the things they're known for are these giant cups of chocolate-covered strawberries, and they are swimming in chocolate. And I got one. Of course, there are still some lingering voices, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot, and it is. But the lingering judgments of it, you're not going to eat that all yourself, right? And I didn't have to. And honestly, I could have kindly been done, and not out of like restriction or fear or anything. But I took that opportunity to eat the whole giant cup of strawberries and all like the pool of chocolate left behind. And I just told my tour group yesterday that I'm a robot who never cries. I only cry on the inside. But this time I was like visibly tearing up, which for me is full on weeping. And I am right now, like essentially full on weeping, but for me tearing up and choking up. Because I had that full circle moment of being like, oh my goodness, I'm here. I'm having this experience again, and I'm having it in a new way. And I had such gratitude that I get to be here for Brad, for, pushing me to invest in myself, letting me fly. But also gratitude for how much I have changed. And as part of that, like, some pride. Like, I am so proud of myself. I could have had that same experience today. The same opportunity, really. And had the old experience again. Had I not persisted in this thing I teach you about all the time, dang it. The small wins build over time, that things take time, that it's messy and hard to change. And now, like, to be in a place where 19 years later, to be in the same opportunity and to have a different experience, to me it's just like a living emblem of these principles. And so I'm proud of myself today. I'm proud of Monica 19 years ago, who came home from that study abroad and who went to the counseling office at her college and started to get help. And I'm proud of Monica, who a year later kept trying when things didn't seem to be getting any better. And then the Monica 4 years later, who was a little bit better, but still not. And thinking that it would never change, maybe. That maybe I would just always really struggle with it. And now fast forward to 19 years, being like, I don't. There are some lingering things. Of course, there always will be. Because I'm a woman who lives now. We can't fully escape it. But I am so proud of myself and grateful that I kept trying. So, congratulations. I had one tear come out. Maybe two. So I guess that's my yearly or maybe decade cry. But wow, what a good one to have. Oh. So now I'm literally standing, like walking back and forth in this little lane next to the globe. So I'm going to go look at that for a moment and then continue my walk and just take it all in. I'm so grateful for this last day. I'm grateful that I get to do it by myself. I need that time. But it's just that this whole thing has felt like one of the coolest and most special things I've ever done for myself, and that Brad has done for me too. Because I couldn't have done it without his urging and support and good attitude. So I guess that's another way to say I'm also excited to see my family. All right, that's it for that very long kind of capstone to the trip. But I'm sure I'll come back to share a little bit more tonight and try to get this together for you. But thanks for listening.
In revisiting that moment, I want to urge you with all I have to do the thing now. The big thing that you've been thinking about. The big thing that you've been too scared to think about. Do not wait. Take the small and gentle, messy steps and believe in the process of change, and consider how it may be time to do that in a big way. Even a way that just feels big to you. A way that acts as an ultimate form of both reconnection and a reclamation for yourself. Reclamation meaning a reclaiming of you. That big thing doesn't have to be a trip abroad like it was for me, although it could. It could look like starting therapy, hosting a new book club for your neighborhood, making your first do something list, taking a me day, or even something as seemingly simple as getting a pedicure or a girls' night out. For me, as a non-social butterfly, both of those things would feel big to me. What is big for you doesn't have to look grandiose to anyone else. It's more about stretching yourself outside of your comfort zone, of even your family's comfort zone too, to reconnect with and to reclaim yourself. So, I think I've made the case to occasionally going big with forms of self-care that require time. After the break, I want to talk about my own case study of doing so and the lessons I learned on my recent trip abroad, ones that can apply to you and whatever big step you are going to take. If you owned a business, would you sign up for continuing education to support it? What if you were or are a teacher, a beauty technician, a doctor, a photographer, a dental hygienist, or anything else? The answer is, of course, you would sign up for continuing ed because that is what all good professionals do. So if you would answer yes when it comes to investing in a job, then why are you any different? I have found that online education for parenting abounds. I have signed up for countless courses and conferences for parenting my ADHD children. But in our pursuit to be good mothers, we put parenting and mothering above being humans, which affects those things, obviously, so deeply. So, where's the online education for moms to learn not just how to be a better mom, but a better fulfilled, joyful human? That's where the More for Moms course comes in. This was my More for Moms conference turned into a self-paced course made up of 25 world-class speakers who will educate you on how to be you again in ways that are deep and practical. From making sense on why you lost yourself to good intentions in the first place, to helping you explore what it would look like if you were on your own list, to tactile ways to improve your everyday, from dinner to style to hobbies to fun. The More for Moms course has it all. I want to invite you to invest in continuing education for yourself by signing up today for $20 off with the code LISTENER at checkout. This is an exclusive code to listeners of the About Progress podcast. When you sign up, everything from the More for Moms conference becomes a self-paced course. You get access to all conference material from video to transcripts to audio, so you can catch up or revisit all speaker sessions for years to come. And my favorite part is the More for Moms conference audio. It's a private ad-free podcast feed with all 25 speaker sessions, so you can listen on the go, which is my preferred medium. Again, you can sign up for $20 off with the code LISTENER at aboutprogress.com/moreformoms. It's time for you to invest in continuing education for you because you are a person too. Again, sign up at aboutprogress.com/moreformoms for $20 off using the code LISTENER at checkout. I want to set this up by telling you just a little bit about the trip because it really leads to the lessons that I learned while I was there. The trip I took was to London, like I said, but I originally signed up for a Pride and Prejudice pilgrimage tour in the British countryside in Derbyshire, which I always feel like I'm saying wrong, but I think I said it right this time. This tour was hosted by a podcast host of a podcast I love, one of the few I actually listen to. I more listen to audiobooks. I know the irony is pretty strong. The podcast is Pantsuit Politics, and the tour host was Sarah Stewart Holland. When she shared this trip on her podcast, I immediately looked it up, and I mean immediately. I was getting ready to work out. I usually listen to something as I do so, and I stopped what I was doing and looked at the tour right then and there, and I booked it a day or two later. The reason this called to me is because it feels nerdy. I was an English major and English teacher. I now love to read again. Pride and Prejudice is a classic. I love anything Jane Austen. I also love anything nature, walking, hiking, being outside, and anything English too, thanks to a study abroad that I did almost 20 years ago. And in particular, I knew I'd have to fly in and out of London so I could revisit there, a place I hadn't been to in that same amount of time. So this tour had my name all over it. When I asked Brad, hey, can we make this possible? I told him how I wanted to pay for it too. He said yes, and I signed up and I immediately felt so excited. Those feelings changed, and that's partly what I'm going to share about with this lesson. But I did go on the trip, I went back, and these are the lessons I want to share that I learned from going big with my act of radical self-care, a self-care where I reconnected with myself and reclaimed myself too. The first lesson is it will not feel easy to do the big thing. I told you how excited I was initially. That excitement faded over the 6 months between signing up and going. Over those days, all I could think about was the great time and money and sacrifice that was going to go into me going on this trip, not just for myself, but for my whole family. I recently looked at the history of my heart rate. Long story why, but I was looking at the history of it, and I laughed out loud when I saw that the days leading up to my trip, my resting heart rate was extremely high. I can tell you that was true, but my anxiety was even higher. I felt terrified to go. I was scared of being by myself until I joined a tour group, of being alone on an airplane ride, of not knowing my roommate, of the public transit, of how to get from one place to another. The list was endless. I was out of my comfort zone. You will too. It will not feel easy to do the big thing. Do it anyway. And if that involves going somewhere, go anyway. The second lesson is it takes a village. Thanks to the responsibilities that I bear and that I know you as women bear too. A word we could replace with responsibilities is relationships. I knew that I could not go on this trip without help. And that meant I had to ask for it. I had to ask Brad for help. I had to ask my mom for help with our toddler so that Brad could work as well. I had to ask my kids to step up to the plate and to do more. And doing this big thing wasn't possible totally on my own. You must ask for help, and you may even have to require it. Sometimes that boldness is necessary, where you say, I am doing this thing, and I require your support. It will take a village, and it's okay to ask for that village. The third lesson is that you will be surprised by both the joy and the grief that comes with reconnecting. I'm getting emotional about this, with forgotten parts of yourself. That is why I wept that entire last day, because I felt both. I felt the joy of being like, wow, I'm me. I'm myself again. I thought I was being me, but reconnecting in such a deep way, thanks to the time that I had to do so, felt equal parts joyful and something to grieve, because I could see the small parts that I still have lost to life. Not that it was anybody's fault or taken from me, but just lost to life. And I felt so happy to be reconnected to that and to reclaim it, but also the sadness of noticing that it was gone. And that was something to grieve. The fourth lesson is to use this opportunity, this moment of where you take some big, often time for yourself. Use that opportunity to spur a reclamation of yourself. To me, this looks like reclaiming that this is your life, to insist that you are alive, that this is your life too, that as much as you love and value and prioritize the responsibilities in your life, again, the relationships in your life is for you too. So you must live it. And that means you can reclaim the interests you have, the wants, desires, the needs that you have. Reclaim those things. The fifth lesson is to consider how this experience can spur the how in real time, outside of the experience. You listened to me do this in real time a couple weeks back when I shared about how, I'm in a funk, more on that in a moment, and how I was able to say like, well, I can't live in England. So what from that experience is something I can extract and replicate in my day-to-day life, in my normal life. So for me, it was rest and hobbies and adventure. So from your experience, come up with some themes that can match your normal life and what needs to maybe change in your household and your relationships. so that you can prioritize hobby-wise and habit-wise these threads in your day-to-day life. Number 6, the 6th lesson, is that normal life will feel hard for a while, and that's honestly part of the point. That's what you've heard me do in real time. I'm still in the messy middle of this, but I've told myself, and it's made me lean in ways that are actually productive. I've told myself, this is normal, and it's actually the point. When you have that time, even if it's just like an hour, like the therapy session or going to a museum or whatever it may be for yourself, when you return to normal life, it's going to feel a little bit like hitting a wall in some ways. That pause is going to give you an opportunity to ask hard questions, to even have hard conversations. I want to encourage you to lean into that discomfort a bit and let that disruption change things about your day-to-day life so that life is actually better yours from here on, like we talked about reclaiming. So that's a hard lesson that returning to normal life may feel a little hard, but that's okay. And the 7th and final lesson is the purpose is you. You are going to feel selfish for taking this time. Again, it all comes back to time. Sometimes money too, sometimes sacrifice from other people as well. You're going to feel selfish. I did. I felt selfish. That was part of my anxiety leading up to the trip is I had to buy plane tickets still, even after buying the tour. I had to buy some clothing items for all the hiking that we were doing. It was a lot of money and a lot of time. I left my family to do so. And I can tell you that I came back truly washed head to toe, inside out, with fulfillment, with gratitude, and even the sacredness of that experience of being able to have that time to and for myself. And I had to own that it wasn't that I was being selfish. It was about reclaiming myself. And that meant, if this is what helps you do so, that I have more to give from now. As hard as it's been to come back, I have been more myself and I have more to give from now too. I'm going to repeat those 7 lessons in a bit, but I want you to think of how you can apply them to yourself and the big way you want to take care of yourself, which will likely entail taking some time. What will that look like? And I'd honestly love to hear about it. Your Do Something challenge this week is to do that, to think of something, a big way that you want to take care of yourself, and to tell me about it. I'd love to hear about it via email. You can email me at hello@aboutprogress.com. In ending, I want to revisit one of my fiery statements I said near the beginning, and it's one I really want you to remember. It is never too late, but do not wait. I hope this episode gave you a hug and kick in the pants you need to grow. I'll now share the progress pointers. These are the notes I take so you don't have to, and those on my newsletter get them in a graphic form each week. You can sign up at aboutprogress.com/newsletter. And today, the progress pointers are those 7 lessons. And this is just a shortened version of the lessons. The longer form will be on the graphic. When you do something big to prioritize caring for yourself, know, number 1, it won't feel easy or convenient. Do it anyway. Go anyway. Number 2, it takes a village. You must ask for help and may even have to require it. Number 3, you will be surprised by both the joy and the grief that come with reconnecting with forgotten parts of yourself. Number 4, use this opportunity to spur a reclamation of self. Number 5, consider how this experience can spur the how in your day-to-day life. Number 6, normal life may feel hard for a while, but that's honestly part of the point. And number 7, the purpose is you. It's not about being selfish. It's about reclaiming a self. Your Do Something challenge again for this week is to choose one big way you are going to prioritize yourself, and bonus points if you email your idea to me at hello@aboutprogress.com. I also want to link in the show notes the Do Something List free training. It's never too late in the year, so you can go to aboutprogress.com/DSL to get a training on how to make your own Do Something list. And I'll also link to the Me Day episode that I recently aired on how to take a Me Day. Before I go, I want to invite you to something extra big. Consider making your radical form of self-care a tour to Rome, Italy with me. You may know this already, but I am hosting a female foodie tour exclusive to just our community to Rome, Italy. It's a 7-night tour. The theme of this trip is Rediscover Me.
Throughout our time together, we're going to eat amazing food. We're going to see everything you could ever want to see. We're going to stay in Rome. We're also going to stay in a villa outside of Rome. Everything will be beautiful, top-notch, and tasty. And along the way, I'm going to teach a workshop and host discussions on this theme of rediscovering yourself. There's more in store, but the whole trip will be about you finding you again. Most of the rooms on the tour are taken. There's just a few spots left. This is a companionship model trip, so you can either find a friend to come and sign up, or you can be a single rider, just like you do at an amusement park. I have already paired 4 single riders, and there's one currently in the wings who really wants to come. So if you're interested in being a single rider, and if you want to get more information on the trip, and also hear about the special incentives I'm providing to single riders specifically, you can email me at hello@aboutprogress.com, and you can also check out the tour details at aboutprogress.com/Italy. I know this tour is a huge investment, and I have to tell you, I thought long and hard before agreeing to host it, especially in this economy. But I can say with full confidence now more than ever, thanks to the tour that I went on, that as big of an ask as this is for yourself and likely for your family, I know if you can make the investment, you will not regret it. And a quick note on the investment piece. Other female foodie tours being released right now are selling at much higher rates. Our tour rates are secure, but I cannot promise this in the future, and I don't think I will likely host a tour in the future too. So again, to learn more about the tour, go to aboutprogress.com/Italy. To learn more about the single rider option and the incentives I'm providing to those riders, email me at hello@aboutprogress.com and do so really quickly. With all that being said, I again want to remind you, it doesn't require a trip abroad, but I want you to think about a form of big self-care that you can take on right now. This podcast is listener supported. You can support the show by signing up for the Supporters Club at aboutprogress.com/support. But you can always support the show for free. And the best way to do that right now is to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts specifically. And doing so, you get automatically submitted to my favorite things giveaway that is about to start. It's a rolling giveaway, so I pull from the reviews left in our current year. And there are a few reviews left, so you are very likely to win if you submit something now. You can do that by going to Apple Podcasts online or on your phone and leaving a rating and review there. Thank you so much for listening. Now go and do something with what you learned today. That excitement faded over the 6 months between signing up and going. Over those days,